into the matchup. OXG have had a fantastic stage so far, and they are looking to close things out over today and tomorrow here. Currently holding the number 2 seed in the division, going up against DarkZero, who's been struggling so far here currently at number 6. We're into the bans, and once again, just in case you missed the notes there, it is a chalet for the map. You just saw it on the fly through. So we'll get right into the bans, and not going to be too surprising to start things out here. Oxygen will knock Thatcher out of play.
Yeah, which is interesting. We had Thatcher come through earlier today on our chalet, and we actually ended up seeing, I believe, one round of Thatcher overall on the offensive side, so we're not going to have any of that opportunity come to fruition here on this chalet, and we also won't have the opportunity to pick up Nomad either. So this is going to be somewhat limiting to what the offense is going to be allowed to do early on. The biggest thing is going to be those distance-based engagements when it comes to those hard breaches and the way they want to try and get rid of some of these hard-to-reach spots. Well, Maya is also going to be removed from DarkZero here. This is a routine thing that we see from them, so honestly was expected walking in here.
So what the last one's going to be, it is going to be the choice of Oxygen, and they pretty much have a full spread of choices to pick from here. It really depends on which way they want to send it. Not any huge counters or anything to throw out at this point with their ban, so they're just going to go for a pretty standard one here and remove Valkyrie from play. Once again, too universally useful at this point for defenders, so she's getting banned out quite often.
Yeah, this is going to actually be a pretty interesting chalet, because with the Wamai ban coming in here, that means you can't go for the Wamai Jaeger combo. You're going to have to lean into a Rooney for a lot of these other situations where you're going to be trying to block outdoors and things along those lines. So we'll really have to see what Oxygen and, well, when DarkZero gets there, what they both have to offer on these defensive sides. Obviously, the Valkyrie also being removed, so they won't have that extra info and insight to try and use throughout the map. So should overall be a pretty interesting game. But that's enough of talking about the bans, folks. We're finally in here. It's going to be a kitchen dining room defense off rip here for Oxygen, and they already have quite a unique look, especially with Laxing coming in with this alibi. Foxy's got a pulse to try and read out a couple of these, situations that are going on upstairs with that cardiac sensor, and we also have the Frost.
Not to mention as well, Capitao getting 6 picked in there for Canadian. We've been seeing quite a bit of use out of him here today, just looking at that last matchup where he's been quite, he's been missing, at least as far as I've been seeing, for quite some time.
That's already a big pickup for them as well. That 6 pick into Capitao is just a hallmark of having a Wamai ban. No one there to counter him. All of Capitao's arrows are going to land true. And for those of you that did not play back in the day, Capitao can be extremely influential over a lot of the positioning based in sight, but it's going to be obviously down to DarkZero trying to pick up a lot of intel as to where these positions are to actually make that go off.
For Oxygen, they really need to try and deny the top-down control as well as those initial entry angles here, because if Canadian can get into position to use those firebolts in the right space, then that is going to make it very, very tough for Oxygen to hold if this comes down to a sight fight in the final couple seconds. We usually see rounds boil down for that. It's also going to, of course, rely on Canadian keeping himself alive and keeping those bolts in check up until that point in the rounds. That's a big risk there being played into it about DarkZero, but if they can bring it all the way to the null point at the end of the round, then it can be incredibly useful and could very well be the thing that pushes it over the edge for them.
Yeah, the Finca Chalet meta also today has really come out to play, and we're going to have it here yet again from DarkZero. This time around it'll be ran by Hyper, so we'll see what they can exactly do with that. The biggest thing right here, right now, though, is they're obviously going to be bringing another set in the likes of NJR, so they'll have both of those frag sets as well as that hard breach and the likes of Eclipse, but they seriously have to hit their marks on this. This can honestly go pretty awry pretty quickly depending on the character that ends up getting taken down here, so DarkZero really does need to measure twice and cut once, because any oversight on this is more than likely going to be detrimental.
And we can see the prominence from OXG here. They are still wanting to get in the face of this potential play going into Solarium at the moment. They'll still be able to make their way in without too much of an issue. As you folks can see from the silhouettes, there's not a whole lot of resistance in the actual Solarium area for the OXG roster. They're looking to fend it off from downstairs for the most part, so they are going to let the DarkZero members in and to start setting up on those top-down angles. As we'll see NJR having plenty of time to swing away at that and open up everything that this team will eventually need. This will also become the staging ground for DarkZero too. You'll notice quite a few other members are going to follow behind NJR's ascend into this position so that they can take this one and work it as, like I said, a staging ground to fulfill the rest of this attack with.
How awkward for DarkZero right now as well, or honestly rather Oxygen with the way that this top floor has broken down. They've been forced out towards Library. Now the good news is that DarkZero is more than likely going to need some control around that Fireplace Hall space. Unless they can get some major picks inside of the site, then they can more than likely pressure out Kitchen as well. We saw that obviously break down in very similar fashion inside of our last chalet here too. So DarkZero Still have plenty of opportunity to try and get through this, but this is the biggest thing. Foxay is going to continue to read out all of the positioning from all of these DZ members through that cardiac sensor, and honestly, Foxay doesn't even need to kill anybody here. He literally just needs the intel to feed back to these OXG members, and they'll do all of the dirty work for him. Look at this timer right now. Somebody's got to get something going, and finally, it'll be DarkZero as they take down Foxay and his beacon of info downstairs.
OXG have wasted so much time, though, so what's going to be left for DarkZero to move in on? Well, quite a lot, apparently, as they are moving very quickly into position to start putting themselves closer towards a kitchen plant here. At the same time, there's a lot of defensive utility that still was unused at this execute point, but regardless, all the kills are going the way of DZ right now. Hyper most recently finding Laxing, bringing that defensive setup down to 3, but as well, we're going to see Vertical get one for himself. It's immediately exchanged, though, against Kino, and on top of that one, NJR rips everyone to shreds in the final moments as he gets everybody stuck in this corner here and just has a ball game with that angle.
Unfortunate there for Auction. That top floor just deteriorated in a way that they really couldn't actually fight back against the hole. DarkZero already having the door to piano sealed. There was no rotation for them for office, and if you try and hop out onto K9 balcony and make your way into the office through that, means you also get marked outside because of those changes a while ago where it's 1 second now instead of 3. So really no opportunity for those Oxygen members to actually try and take the fight to DarkZero on that top floor, which that's the necessity that we were talking about. We needed to see them try and combat back against DarkZero inside of this take. It never happened, and they transition it immediately into a take through trophy. After, of course, in Canadian fashion, they check downstairs to see what's going on. They find a pulse, and they find the first frag.
So things continue to go well, or rather start pretty well for DZ, but they're not going to be able to repeat their efforts on the same site. OXG will not go for that same attempt back down on the inside of Kitchen. Instead, they're going to go towards the bar site, which has been the go-to for quite a few of our defensive teams here. And while it started out quite successfully for defenders, we have started to see the stat line shift a bit more so towards attackers in recent weeks here, as attackers have been figuring out how to better play this map, as it's still one of the more recent ones that were added to the pool, or at least the remake of this one, rather, was added to the pool. Obviously, Bank is still the most recent, but this one's only been in, I think, about a year now, right?
Yeah, just around that time frame.
So still in a building phase for some teams in terms of what they're looking to do with this map, but I think, once again, much like all of the other remakes or fixes to the maps that they have done, this one has definitely bolstered the competitive scene quite a bit here, and it's been quite a fun map to cast.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I love the way that this map breaks down, and I think that it offers a lot of different interesting ways that the map ends up, you know, going throughout the round. And that's the biggest thing is, like, over time with Rainbow Six, we just ended up getting a lot of these maps that you only did things one way, and if you don't do it that way, then you're more than likely dumb, and you should be doing it that way. You know, and it just became very infuriating, especially around the time of, like, the utility meta, right, where you're not bringing enough of these operators on defense, and it basically just seems impossible because the offense at all times is bringing so many explosives, so many throwables, because they got to be prepared for what the defense can possibly bring. So overall, just really wasn't the funnest time when everything was just stuck in its ways, but ever since a lot of the, you know, changes to the meta as well as the maps, it's just been so fun to watch as well as cast. Now, the thing about for Chalet today is that it's actually been pretty slow rolling. It's a pretty smooth boil overall. Yeah, and this is going to be yet another round where we're going to have that, although it might be changing up very soon. We'll have an E1D out here as Yaga's going to get ripped from Hyper. What a shot from him to take down the library balcony player.
And JR as well carries that forward and puts an even better advantage in the hands of DarkZero by taking out Vertical, holding himself over at the top blue stairs and removing him from play. Once again, setting up DZ to pretty much have their way with this map at this point here, at least the greater sides of it here, as unfortunately, Oxygen really cannot afford to keep any extended presence out about on the map here, except in the immediate area surrounding the site, as we can see for Kino and Foxay.
Well, wouldn't you know it, Jesse? The 2 weeks that are off, DarkZero used to more than likely scrim a lot, because they are looking completely different from what they once were 2 weeks ago. Especially for NJR, he seems to be more on a front roll, at least here for Chalet. We don't know if it's, you know, map dependent or what, but as of right now, he is definitely that entry for DarkZero that's just really getting this pressure onto Oxygen and exerting all of this and really making it difficult for them to try and battle back. They haven't even been able to find a frag inside inside of this round just yet, although it might be coming soon, and it's going to be coming from Kino. He'll knock down Canadian, which we've been seeing some action from throughout this thus far, but the Arrow's really not able to get too much done, and now DarkZero have to try and power forward. They're stuck upstairs currently inside of Library around the hatch. Foxay not able to get the first one, and oh no, he will get gutted inside of Bar Stock. It's all down to Kino now, and he's got 0 Nitro Cell to try and play into this.
Follow-ups in the gunfights are so smooth right now here from DZ, and they're going to follow that through all the way to the bitter end of this one as they get a smooth second round rolling for themselves and a 2-0 lead to build up on top of that. OXG is facing off against a brand new beast here in DarkZero today, and they may not be ready for it with the way things are going right now. I wouldn't be surprised, probably not immediately here, but after the next round or two, if things continue to go into DZ's favor, there has to be a pause for OXG in the cards to figure out what's going wrong here.
I would like to just remind you, obviously this is not playing into this match, but Oxygen is indeed qualified for the Sweden Major. Just to let all of you guys know, this match means a lot more to DarkZero than it means to Oxygen. That does not mean that Oxygen are going to be a bunch of slouches that just lay down and let this match happen. Oh, no, no, no. I still expect a TO and all that kind of stuff to come out from OXG. But just to remind you, there is just a tiny asterisk on this for them if they are looking to the future. But as of right now, they'll be headed back to Games Bar to see if they can try and get this done yet again here. And I believe we've got some changes coming through on this operator lineup as well.
Just a little bit of a housekeeping note, folks. While these teams are in prep phase here, I've been reminding folks of it on every game, but we are currently not playing on the most recent patch. We were on one patch before that, which means that things like the Roni recall changes and other things are not in play right now. I just wanted to let you guys know about that for anyone.
What else is it?
Yeah, for the like more nerdy Siege players out there, I don't think they have any like sweeping huge changes coming.
Well, the biggest thing
is the recoil stuff.
Well, it's the recoil stuff, and then there's a really fun one. You want to know what it is?
What's that?
It's the cap can changes.
Oh.
Where you can put an absurd amount of them on a singular door and just kill somebody instantly.
Okay.
Yeah, see, now I would have loved to have cast that today,
I mean, with how much cap count or capital play we're getting today anyway, that really seems to be compounding. That's probably going to swing into the meta here with the way we're seeing it play.
Absolutely. Especially, like, I mean, just think about this. If you can set up some, like, death doors and then you have, like, a mute Mozzie, that's not fun.
But just to finish the point, we're playing on that older patch, the reason being that we wanted to keep the meta relatively the same as the way it's been the rest of the stage. So we didn't want to throw a drastic change in there for the final 2 play days.
Yeah, I got some other odds and ends to patch up inside of that as well. But as soon as they get that, obviously we will be playing on it. I'm assuming that we're more than likely not going to be playing on it for tomorrow as well. So, but we'll keep you guys updated on that. As for round 3 and how things have been going so far, really not much has happened. As to be expected as DarkZero are getting this opening ensemble going, just trying to see what they can find with these drones. And honestly, it's not going to be too much of a change here from OXG, as Yag will be in a very similar position around the library balcony.
Away from that, we are continuing to see DarkZero build up their attacking presence across the map here, starting to build that courage to work their way in. We've seen, in a lot of respects, very, very sudden pushes from DarkZero. That's a great one right there. All quiet for the previous minute and a half before this, and then all of a sudden, a member of OXG is taken out without much warning there. That's Canadian once again assisting with that, as he'll take some heat from the fight. Still leaves OXG that one player weaker, and DarkZero once again with the free initiation capability by having that extra player.
Yeah, honestly, I have been loving what we've been seeing from DZ right now and the way that they've been using NJR throughout this map. I mean, the importance of these other operators that they have in their lineup is just almost paramount, all except for really Hyper, which the Adrenal Surges really do, you know, assist. But if you lose them early, that's not the biggest thing. But when things start to dwindle like they are right now, oh man, it can just run away from you. Oxygen, they're going to get the fastest 3K that we've seen all day. DarkZero, they're lost for words. They can't get any of these refrags to go off. Oxygen have finally found their mark, and now for DarkZero, it's down to the clutch.
What a swing from them, and now it's, brought the DarkZero roster down to this final minute of the round here. Things were going so swimmingly for them, and now it's turned itself around, and they may not actually have the time to make up the difference here. With so many members of Oxygen still alive, and more importantly, out and about from the site as well, it's going to be such a difficult task here for DarkZero to successfully make their way into the site. You can tell, though, they're well aware of the odds stacked against them, and NJR takes such a slow approach, he can't can't find the trace, however, onto, I believe that's Fox. Never mind, Fox is down here at the bottom of the main stairs. He'll be found out by NJR, however, as another member of OXG falls, and the odds get a little bit better, but the time continues to shrink here for DZ. They get no closer to the site than they were previously. One final push is more than likely going to be how this ends. It needs to be all in, and it needs to be quick, and unfortunately, they need to keep an eye on everything, which they're not able to do. Eclipse exchanges out of the loss of NJR, but he's now forced to stick the plants, and Laxing will have a very easy time shutting him down to finally put OXG on the board here on the third round.
Yeah, fantastic stuff from them in the mid-round. Audible being called to apply the pressure to DarkZero, and finally some serious kills coming to the OXG camp. Extremely happy for them because really it was just looking so lackluster throughout those first 2 rounds. I really didn't know what to say because that's not something that we exactly expect out of Oxygen, especially given their recent matches. They've looked so very good, especially in those mid-rounds where they're really able to take it to their opponent, but finally they get one on the board. DarkZero will have to go back to the drawing board to try and make some adjustments here, but luckily enough it will not be back onto the game site. We'll be headed back towards Kitchen with a 6-pick off of the Bandit towards the Pulse for Fox A, so expect him downstairs once again.
All right, so let's see if Oxygen can keep this train rolling for themselves after finally getting some footing going there in the first round, countering out not necessarily the initial aggression we see from DarkZero, but at least trapping them at a later point, really turning things around in order to put them in much better control of the situation, and obviously give them that much greater freedom at the end of the round to play into the aggressive playstyle that we very much know this team likes to play into when they have the chance to do so. For DarkZero, though, I would expect more of the same. No huge changes specifically inside of the operator department, so strategy should remain pretty much the same as well. If anything, they're going to be keeping a closer watch and might be taking a slower approach to things when it comes to the initial entry due to what happened there at the midpoint on the previous round.
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be something that we see for DarkZero try and make an adjustment in and recognizing what can happen inside of that mid-round. Start looking for, you know, that very quick full-court press from Oxygen throughout the entirety of the map. But we'll have to see how this one breaks down. We all know and love Canadian, and it's for one thing, his IGLing ability. It's one of these guys that you can only perform one thing a singular time against them. But as well, Canadian will be picked off first. He's going to be able to oversee the entirety of his team from the death screen.
So nicely done there as Canadian falls out, and while that is certainly going to potentially increase the leadership capabilities of DarkZero for this round, it will decrease the aggressive capabilities they have overall due to the loss of the Yana. Obviously, doesn't need to really go without saying that the loss of intel will be measurable here too, although a bit of aggression from Vertical finally gets called, although he does return decent damage on his own regard. Panva wins the fight. Yes, what does he have left after that? As he's sitting around just 20 HP now, still with all 3 E1Ds in his pocket, meaning he has to sit in a corner so that utility can be of some use to the rest of the squad.
Yes, indeed. And so the rest is Oxygen. Very similar straits for them as well. It's patience as of right now to see what DZ are capable of doing throughout the rest of this minute and 40 seconds. Although Fox A, he'll be able to have a very good read as to what is the situation overall throughout the map, especially with the top floor and outside of the building right here outside of Kitchen. So he'll keep an eye on Pambazoo and what happens on this top area. For DarkZero, it looks like Solarium might be the entry point here for them as they try and clear things in through Trophy. But again, this is going to get read out. And with Pambazoo, I believe watching the drone hole, he's actually not going to have an opportunity here to try and stop Fox, who is now preset a Nitro cell here. Unless that ended up just going off right now, I really can't tell if those holes were already there, but we'll have to see when DarkZero try to go for their swing into Solarium.
Seeing that start now here as NJR already commits himself into it, as we've seen before. Look at this play from Laxing, though. Leaps into the fight, steals the case right out of Eclipse's hands. Cannot find NJR, though, so it gets exchanged just as quickly. And NJR is looking for more blood here as he has a view into the front door area, but is not able to line up a shot against any of the members of OXG. Still, though, Panva's going to be able to lock down onto Fox A eventually as he's caught in the corner. That brings it down to just 2 now for the defense, as it's going to come to Kino and Yaga to clutch this out. It's the new blood from OXG that need to win this round.
Well, 2 frag grenades on DarkZero side as well. 0 EE1Ds. It's down to these 2 drones to find these lone 2 members from Oxygen. on separate ends of the spectrum here, trying to defend the site. Solid oversight here from DarkZero, but Hyper missed some crucial shots. Pambazoo will get the refrag, and it's a triple kill right now for him on the round, but it's all up to Yaga inside of the clutch with very minimal time. DarkZero have to try and stick a plant here, and that's up to NJR with Pambazoo to oversight it. Some solid shots from Yaga, but he can't get them to land. He'll have to re-swing into it, but Pambazoo punishes him, swings right off the kitchen door, and DarkZero are not letting this one go by the wayside.
Young guns from both of our teams here, fighting their hearts out in the dying moments of the round, but it goes the way of DZ yet again. They steal back the control they already had in the first 2 rounds here. OXG seem to lock onto the plot, and to be fair, they're definitely putting up a much better fight here inside of the mid and late round situation, but still, DarkZero takes control of the lead away again, and that's what's important here, especially when we're heading into the tail end of the first half. OXG only have these final 2 rounds to make an impact. Yes, they could still tie it up, but at the same time, we could very easily look at a 5-1 scoreline.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Oxygen, you kind of got a feel for them inside of that one, especially for Laxing. I mean, it seemed like he fed Habana that MX4 Storm magazine, and they were still persistent, still alive, did not get the frag necessary, and had to double back. And really, that's all it takes inside of Rainbow Six. It was that split second, and Laxing ends up dying there instead of getting the 2K that could have ended up getting gifted to him. So for Oxygen, they're going to be down 2 rounds instead of 1 like it was previously. DarkZero, I mean, they just look convincing today. The biggest thing as of right now is, Troy, we kind of need to see you get on the board.
Well, we'll see how he's able to develop that. Not the first player today that's been struggling a little bit in the fragging department, but
yeah, poor Yeti, right? I mean,
yeah.
like he was saying, I mean
dude,
the timings, man, the timings.
The thing with Yeti redeemed himself at the end of that match.
True.
He picked up a solid like 7 or 8 kills. I think he ended up having more than Super at the end of that match. I say that purely for statistical means, but
how dare you?
But yeah, so ended up picking up like 7 or 8 kills in like what, like 3 or 4 rounds, something like that. So either way, a massive turnaround from him. We just need to see that from Canadian as well.
Yeah, a huge bounce back. But I mean, initially for like the first 4 or 5 rounds, I was just sitting there. I'm like, Xander, you're on Maverick, man. Come on. But hey, as you said, they bounced back in a pretty convincing fashion, especially for Yeti's case. And we're hoping to see the same here from Canadian. He's made a pretty big audible here, bringing in the Ying, so he's really going to have to focus on that survival rate here. We do not want to see him get picked off early on. We really want to see these drones come through and find some solid info for DZ, because losing any of them, besides NJR, seriously, early is more than likely going to be detrimental. Hyper also kind of in that same boat, but you really want to keep those adrenal surges up just so you have those for execute or for clearing out the map when you want some more health and 0 recoil.
See, once again, big focus on the setup is going to shift over here towards fending off pressure from the front lobby instead, as they start to see where the initial pressure from DarkZero is going to work its way in from here. This is on top of the fact that, once again, OXG had quite a bit of resistance set up initially, only on the backside over towards Solarium there. So that's just going to have that one laser gate in front. I'm assuming ADS pressure as well, but if DarkZero do focus the pressure primarily on the office side, they are going to be able to dodge quite a bit of the utility that was set up to counter a Solarium play. It's not to say, of course, they won't try to use that as well, but it's certainly not looking like it at the moment with the way that DZ is getting their approach towards the office going here. You can see Habana doing work to open up the office wall itself and allow this team to the inside. And that seems to be going off without too much of an issue, as the defenders unfortunately don't have much of a way to stop that.
Yeah, Eclipse is going to be making a small breach on the right-hand side, and I assume actually gets hidden by that half wall at the back end, but the issue is that Vertical's got this angle inside of Piano to oversee the breach, so DarkZero won't have to try and find a solution to this. It might start now with the EE1D coming in, but that's just going to be somewhat of a distraction while they try and clear out all of this utility. Obviously, the damage starting to come in now as well, as Foxay starting to catch some heat around the door, and finally Canadian will shut him down after some solid marks overall by the DZ squad. It's going to be Adrenal Surge out, but no one really trying to muster themselves forward just yet, as they're just waiting to see what these members want to do. And well, oh no, for Oxygen, it's going to be quite a bit of damage onto Vertical, who's playing around that piano space, trying to get up on top of that. And well, for Oxygen, it's down to this. They really need some frags back, and oh, he looks the wrong way. They both try and combat this space, but Hyper comes up huge with this. It's all down to Laxing in the 1 versus 5, and Canadian will be the last one to
comeback performance after the 2-week break. and is currently leading 4-1 versus OXG on the inside of this matchup. This is important to note as well. DarkZero, yes, are currently 6th in the division, but they also have far more matches to play remaining than any other team, and they have a pretty much bonus match when compared to most of the other teams currently fighting for contention for playoff spots. With that extra opportunity, DarkZero could still sneak their way in much better than some people may be considering.
Yeah, honestly, this could be a pretty interesting well, next day, actually, since obviously today is our last game as of right now. So it could honestly build up to be quite the interesting case as to what could happen to DZ in the future. But either way, we are into the last round now, folks, for this half, as Oxygen currently sitting 1 up to the DarkZero's 4 with the possibility of a 5-1 split in favor of the DZ offense. And they've looked very, very solid throughout this. Some great adjustments from Canadian in particular. Love the Ying pick up the last round, but obviously weren't able to get too much done with that because it wasn't a necessity. So he's going to move back away from that and pick the Capitao back up, which is exactly why we saw DZ take away that Wamai ban. This is going to be the main thing that we ended up seeing Canadian play throughout this entire offensive half.
So let's see here now as DarkZero looking to really seal the deal with one final round on the attack for themselves. It is going to come onto a much more difficult site, though, where we have seen a bit of success from the Oxygen camp also in fending off specifically these initial picks coming from Library, meaning that DarkZero might actually take a different step this time and try and find that initial pressure. However, it's not looking like that based on the initial positions of these players from our top-down POV. Still a big focus on the Library play. Hyper, of course, keeping eyes on all of these windows that can be shot out from the front of the building to make sure that no trouble will befall them as they try to work their way into the inside of Library.
Well, about 45 seconds in here now with Oxygen slowly trying to move up towards DarkZero and see if they can find any of these very influential initial picks. Oxygen have been looking for them time and time again, but it's usually DarkZero to find our opening engagements. Oxygen going to be holding on to this top floor for quite some time, and that's also going to be what DarkZero are looking into currently. Lots of drones around this top floor, finding out some particular spaces, and particular space that Canadian actually found. And oh man, absolutely slapped. That was just not kosher right there in the slightest. Canadian will get taken down, but NJR will get the refrag, and once again, NJR coming up huge here for DZ.
Foxay, though, with another potential to frag this right back against the members of DarkZero. But
Oh,
it's
no.
going to be NJR once again taking over the show here. He's still got to figure out Foxay, though. This is the tricky one. This is the one that might have gone undroned or unnoticed at a minimum. However, NJR is checking. He knew he was there, but Foxay still gets the better of the gunfight there, brings it back, and actually evens out the player count due to the pick that Yaga got at the beginning of the round.
Indeed, and now with a minute down, it's a 3 versus 3 here as Foxay gets picked up. I thought he'd try and leave the space or at least find some safe harbor inside of here, but no, sitting in clean side of the window, and now DarkZero, they're running away with the bag, John. They've killed Laxine as well. It's all down to Winax Papa. We have got to say it, folks. It's Vertical to try and clutch this up inside of the 1 versus 3. Do they have info on him, though? Yes, they do. We just saw the drone down to the right, and also the EE1D will catch him off guard as well. He'll get immediately pushed out of blue, but now he has the verticality, and oh my god, oh Eclipse, you are the luckiest man alive. Count your stars, because Vertical does not miss very often, and that was a blunder.
Yeah, unfortunately, the pressure just getting to him, it seems, inside of that situation there. DarkZero with so much control. And it's so unfortunate for Vertical, too. He was in a great position. If we didn't see that Library player aggress, because it looked like that was not going to happen, that Library player was pretty concerned about the top-down angle. Had we not seen the aggression come out from that player, Vertical would have been perfectly safe to hold that stairwell and more than likely have a pretty good chance of denying both of the entries coming in from the side door, which at that point just turns it into a pretty straightforward 1v1 where he doesn't have to take it because the case would have gone down. But doesn't pan out that way. He's forced out due to the great intel play from Oxygen to figure out where he's at. And then, of course, the unfortunate gaff in the final gunfight seals the deal.
You know, that 3 versus 3 was actually really difficult to watch,
Yeah.
especially if you're an Oxygen fan, because they usually play those out so much better. You know, that was just a... It almost seemed like just not, they weren't being themselves, you know? Like, inside of the 3 versus 3, we usually see Oxygen really muster that team play. They gather around each other and really take it to the opposition, but that's not exactly what we saw inside of that one. Instead, it was DarkZero to strike first. And also, just wanted to remind you guys really quickly, why Vertical is indeed named Winax Papa. I just want to read this to you guys for those of you that were just joining us a little bit late before we pop off on this second half. So Vertical said on Twitter today that he will be playing as Winak's Papa in memory of his cousin who passed away last week. He loved gaming and it was his dream to make it somewhere into gaming. So Frankie, Vertical couldn't make his funeral today, John, so instead he did the second best thing and he adopted his gamer tag inside of game. And honestly, you know, if that was my situation and my cousin did that, I don't even know what I'd say, man. That's some very serious tears. So shout out to Vertical, because obviously we are all as a community going through a hard time, but him especially is also going through a very hard time. But round 7, guys, now on the board. I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that because it is indeed a very touching story.
Definitely the case. Very touching show overall here today, as we're remembering many, many members of this community, whether extended or not. Coming to the closing end of it here, Vertical trying his best to pay his due diligence to his cousin. As we can see, though, the struggle for OXG is alive and well on the outset of the second half. They're on the attack for the first time now as we get into that 7th round, but DarkZero on the defense. As your expected setup for, I believe, the Bard hold coming out for them right now as we have the extended library play. NJR also stuck in his little nest there in between the library and Blue Stairs connector.
The castle barricade pretty unique as well inside of this space. We'll see what exactly that plays into, but they got the rotation for this area as well, so I don't necessarily know what they're going to look into trying to abuse there. It's more than likely the cross angle that's allowed through that space that's deep inside of library, but you never really know, especially when you're looking just straight down at the map. But either way, DarkZero, they've got a solid defense of this top floor so far, but not until Yaga has something to say about it, and he'll actually end up getting the initial frag here onto NJR, the most impactful player thus far from DZ.
We're halfway through the round here now, and Oxygen have gotten that initial pick against NJR, but not a whole lot beyond that as of yet. Even when it comes to building control, a lot build up over towards the Solarium side, but we still need to see them transition things towards the library hold. This is going to challenge players like Hyper, in addition to the others holding upstairs here, but actually those positions don't seem to be held and locked for very, very long as DarkZero wants to bring this down later on into the round, wants to take this fight a little bit closer to the site. And that plan does have a risk in that it's going to make this situation a bit more claustrophobic for DZ when push comes to shove. She could very well isolate out much, much more instead of the spread play where DarkZero could have a few surprises waiting. Things will continue to go well for OXG as we'll see Vertical find out Hyper next, knocking out the Aruni, and leaving it just on Canadian, Panba, and Eclipse to bring this round back. DZ still has something to bring out, though. It's going to be Eclipse working himself back up through the basement main stairs to push into this. Panba as well is swinging forward to get a bit aggressive in his own angle here now, but Canadian struggling. He's the only one in the site holding the line right now. He needs some support, and he needs it quickly, but it won't arrive in time. He'll find himself in a down state here. Laxing as well, running a bit of a circle at the moment. He will get spotted out by a default cam. Eclipse getting into this site, finds himself one, but goes down to Kino a moment later, leaving just Panba as the only remaining member of DarkZero still in this fight, and he's still got 4 members of OXG to take out here. Kino and Laxing get the job done, and that's going to be them getting onto the board in their initial round on the attack.
Very well done from Oxygen there. Loved the clear across as well. Ended up really applying that pressure to the top floor onto DarkZero. Really never a chance for DZ to try and battle back. It got kind of awkward there once we saw Eclipse down low with those rotations as Ella. There was definitely a chance for DZ to get up and on to 6 points already, but that was quickly swept under the rug from Oxygen. Beautiful adjustment from them to go for games instead. That bar site would have been a little difficult, just, you know, obviously with the verticality that could have came in there as well. So really, really love to see what we had.
Interesting pick going to come out here from DZ as Thunderbird's going to be brought into the play again. Here we've been seeing little hints of her every now and again. Those mobile healing stations obviously activating a bit of an aggressive capability for our defending teams, and that's been the most notable way we've seen her get used now, is to support the extended positions and allow for those players to have that little bit of an HP boost coming in constantly so that they can make sure they have the best odds in a gunfight when one finally does come their way.
Yeah, you know, it's a piece of utility that's pretty unique inside of Rainbow Six overall. Obviously, this is a operator that is basically Doc 2.0. That's kind of how I look at it, because she has much more of a healing capability across the board than he does. Well, for Doc, usually that's just going to be a gunfighting operator overall. You know, you might be able to heal one of your teammates once, but you're more than likely taking an early engagement, healing yourself, and trying to do that throughout the round. With Thunderbird, she can assist her entire team, even post-mortem, as well as on top of that, she's got the Spear 308, which is one of the only assault rifles on defense, and on top of that, she also has impact. So there's a lot of different things that she does. John was completely correct in what he was saying as well, as we usually see them around these areas where there's going to be a hard stance from one of the defenders. Area like here for Eclipse inside of Solarium, but also most notably Vase on Coastline as well, which is where we saw it constantly used by, I believe, the Sonics.
All right, so let's see here now what OXG's plan will be. A couple members of DZ roaming around the map right now, but that seems to have been the formula to getting caught early on here, as Panba will fall victim over here on the Thunderbird itself. I believe getting that first frag for the team, and there's a couple other members of DarkZero still out and about as well, most notably Hyper down on the first floor. They're probably going to want to pull that pack, seeing as things once again have not started out too brightly here at the outset of the second attacking round.
It's been very difficult thus far, although they're starting to break some things up here, and obviously pretty fortunate in the likes of picking up Pambazoo, but just remember, those Thunderbirds are going to stick around and be a little difficult in order to get rid of later on. It's going to keep quite a few of these DarkZero members healthy going into these dying moments. Now for Oxygen, it's really about abusing the map control that they've been able to gather throughout this initial minute and 15 seconds, specifically around Office. That's really where they want to start breaking up this floor. Obviously, some breaching available inside of Master as well, but that's going to be the main game plan. Get vertical in here and start trying to apply pressure through those means, but they still have to deal with NJR's positioning, currently up here inside of Solarium. It's going to be a frag grenade out, but it's eaten up by an ADS. NJR will have to end up hopping down. No one, luckily enough for him, managing the trophy window, so he'll stay alive.
Things stay somewhat palatable here for DarkZero, as although, yes, they take the initial loss against Panba, they've held on to their entire roster past that point, are still keeping some good aggression across the map here to fend off these pushes from OXG. Yogg, for instance, here is going to use the Gemini to quickly bait out the laser gate and get rid of that. Now we'll have the free access to Solarium that this team needs to move themselves forward and start to make the transition down with this nice angle from Hyper, too. If anybody tries to go on Repel towards Solarium, that could be an early death for a member of OXG. But Canadian's got other concerns here to deal with back down inside of the kitchen as another member of the OXG roster tries to take the duel from the top hatch. And now, while over here towards the blue stairs, Laxing's found Eclipse. We've seen Vertical pick up Canadian. That defensive matrix was holding for a good minute or two there, but it is now falling to seams, unfortunately. And it's left only NJR and Hyper still in the fight. Although a nice steal being picked up there by NJR as he takes out Laxing. Another player goes down also. Foxe knocked out of the play, although potentially revivable here. We'll have to wait and see. Never mind. Hyper confirms it. Takes him out of the play and leaves just Kino, Vertical, and Yaga in the clutch situation here now. But there we go. Kino and Yaga complete their wraps around, flank out this retake from DZ, and secure it for themselves instead.
I mean, just too many Oxygen bodies at the end of the day. Way too many different positions that they can be in, and not enough insight for DarkZero to really try and get anything rolling inside of that clutch moment. Yes, the initial kills come through, but again, Oxygen's positioning is just going to be extremely difficult to try and read out at that moment. So you really can't fault them for that one, as Oxygen trying to shore up this lead of DarkZero. Is currently sitting at 5-3, trying to get as many rounds on the board before DarkZero reaches that penultimate round.
DarkZero fighting against the tide, it seems, with OXG, finding these great opening picks, and very much the same way that DarkZero was doing. We see the DarkZero defense constantly moving out around the map here inside of the opening moments of it, and OXG are able to use their drone presence along with this good pre-positioning in order to cancel out those players moving around and knock out one or two of them, as we saw DarkZero doing the same exact thing on their own attack. DarkZero needs to find a way to avoid these opening picks, that they can put up a much better fight and slow down the pacing from OXG to where they can truly control these rounds. They're going to try to do that once again over here towards the bar and games hold. As we'll see the extension come out from DarkZero in a second, there's going to be a pretty heavy reliance on that extended library play as well in order to make sure that this goes off well, and more than anything, they waste the time of OXG.
Yeah, as for DarkZero right now, it's really who is the next person to step up to the plate inside of this frag department. We have Pambazoo doing pretty well right now. Obviously, NJR has been lights out throughout the entirety of this chalet thus far, currently 12-4-1, but as for the rest of the team, you really can't say the same thing. And, you know, we really do expect quite a bit out of Hyper especially, but Eclipse is no slouch in the slightest. So either one of them, as of right now, they're the winning ticket for this team if either of them can have some serious influence over these next handful of rounds. We're into round 9 now, folks, as Oxygen will begin breaking up this top floor. We'll have Foxe, actually, outside on the balcony. He'll be managing the case for the time being. He'll be running out this space to try and assist Laxing, or rather, Papa on Repel.
continue to see that time tick down, and for OXG, they'll continue to look for the opening frag capability here against DZ, but it's been a much longer process this time of trying to isolate it out, and so far it's gone unsuccessfully. NJR is going to have a nice charge eaten up against him here, but a follow-up frag grenade will actually make some decent impact against him, as about a third of his HP will be knocked out as a result of that grenade coming in. NJR, of course, still keeping close overwatch on this angle, and he'll have another teammate making sure that he's supported in the process of doing this too. More than likely going to see NJR bail from this spot though due to the drone spotting him out, but never mind, just changes his stance and will stay due, again, to the amount of additional support he has. He feels he's safe because not only does he have Hyper assisting him from the outside, but there's another one holding blue stairs as well to make sure he doesn't get pushed from the backside here. Still have to be careful with things like the side window and whatnot, but all secured for the time being. And away from that, he did lose his balcony support there as Hyper ended up having to rotate back down. NGR is actually now going to take up this position as we've reached a much later point in the round where they don't need to keep such heavy presence up here anymore.
No, absolutely not. Any of these initial picks that they can find as well are going to play heavily into their hands, so we'll see exactly what they can get done with this space. Library obviously going to be the main game plan right now for Oxygen, but they have to get through NJR in order to take control of this. The case currently downstairs waiting to see if they can possibly try and push forward, but that library area is obviously going to be the initial piece of the puzzle that they need to actually get this going. NJR, he's going to get droned out, so he's going to adjust back out to his deployable shield on library balcony, but the thing is that they're delaying so much time right now. There's 50 seconds remaining, and all the more this happens, all the more it gets more difficult for Oxygen. Yes, it's a 5 versus 5, but this can go so very wrong in a moment's notice, but it looks like it's all going to be starting relatively soon. Yaga currently standing around Mudroom. He'll hop immediately out, but it's not even going to be him to get the initial frag. Instead, it's going to be a refrag. NJR takes down Foxy, Laxing with the refrag, and Laxing with 2 as well. DarkZero starting to fall.
DarkZero once again holding for that first minute or two, but the late round seems to always fall the way of OXG, and this round is no exception. Still has a very fightable roster up and running though, so this is not over just yet, especially with only 20 seconds remaining for OXG to try and put their case down on the ground. They're putting the effort in, but the utility's starting to come out for the defense as well now. Canadian with a pick, and Panba also to take out Laxing. Here comes the drop and the plant attempt though, as Kino runs right into the spray pattern from Canadian. There will be the trade that comes out from Vertical, and he's going to get this case down just in time as well, but he doesn't have the security he needs. Panba will run up, shuts down the round for DarkZero, and they go up on map and match point.
Wow, I'm honestly surprised that we did not see more energy out of DarkZero on that one, because that was a moment that he desperately needed that as well. Able to battle back against Oxygen, who had some very serious control, not only on that top floor, but also the side hallways around the entirety of the site. We saw Laxing really operating around that fireplace hall space extremely well. 2 big kills and able to try and push his team forward into the actual site, but it all falls apart for Oxygen. They try a little bit too quickly for the case. They try and hop in order to combat that, and well, Vertical has to stick the case. He eventually gets off and ends up getting the fight, but I mean, past that, OXG just lose way too many people trying to get this case down.
We're going to see an interesting pick come in from DarkZero, what could be our final round. No smoke to be seen, but we do get a Tachanka pick coming out from our defenders here. So NJR is going to bring that into the fold, and those incendiary grenades, which he can lob out over the course of this round to try and delay things against the OXG push. It's also going to be in the basement hold here too, so there's quite a bit of wall angles that he can use to bank these incendiaries off of.
Yeah, more than likely practice, and if you guys are wondering why I'm saying this is a little troll, is because NJR is currently 13-5, and you're like, yeah, put him on Chanka, why not? Like, you know, this is like, he's playing really, really well, but, you know, hey, you can, as long as you can shoot straight with every gun, then you shouldn't have a problem. So we'll see what Pambazoo is, or rather NJR is capable of inside of this one, as well as what gun he's bringing as his primary. Is it going to be the Russian SMG, or is it going to be the LMG that we all know and love?
See in just a second here once we get our players into fighting shape. NJR is also going to be on cam duty apparently, so he's actually brought the assault rifle, so we're just going to bring the normal one.
He's got the sub, man. That's it.
Is that an SMG? Okay.
Yeah, it's an SMG.
That looks like a rifle to me.
So. No, it really does. It also, like, the rail on top kind of does that. I completely understand where you're coming from. It's like body-wise, kind of similar to the, not looks-wise, by the way, folks. I'm saying size-wise. 416C, like size-wise, it looks very similar. So I understand what you're saying. It kind of looks like a carbine. So
like a mini AK.
Yeah, like a little bean. This is a little bean.
Little AK-74 action. You know,
yeah. Oh, you're talking. Listen, man, you're preaching to the choir. The AK-74U on Black Ops. Oh, that was my bread and butter, man. It's my bread and butter.
All right, well, let's see here now as we've got the members of DarkZero being a little bit more out and about this time. I think because they have the extra security of the delay potential that could come in from NJR in the final seconds, they're feeling a bit more adventurous and are going to be okay, it seems, to lose maybe 1 or 2 players should things go the way they have been in prior rounds with OXG usually getting these picks. Obviously, DarkZero wants to turn that around in their own favor, but so far no dice here. However, things could change over the next couple of moments, and they will indeed, right on cue. Panba quickly taking out Yaga. Hyper will unfortunately get spotted by a drone, though, so he's going to give up his aggressive adventures here and start to fall back towards the basement. Once again, with the player advantage already in their control, there's not a huge reason for them to continue playing like this. They're more than likely going to try and delay a little bit from the first floor, but other than that, they will play to the site.
Well, Oxygen obviously in need of a frag here onto DarkZero, but after that initial one, see an adjustment from DZ. They'll be playing around this bottom floor. Obviously, Panbazoo will make the adjustment all the way back down low. Looks like we currently have 4 inside of this space. Make it 5 as we now spot Canadian inside of the B site here. So DarkZero all downstairs. It's up to Oxygen to actually propel themselves forward and try and get something done here. But the biggest thing is now that they're down Yogg, they don't have the free intel like they once did, as well as look at this drone count. Foxy's already lost his as a support. Laxton's down 1. He's got some cams up, but this could get so very risky. Shotgun out as Eclipse will be managing this space, but they've more than likely seen that laser there and know that it's coming soon. ADS will get actually shot out here, but don't think we have any frag grenades in the area to actually assist this. We'd have to have vertical come across in order to do that. So they're just going to continue to play ring around the rosy here on blue stairs because Eclipse, that's why the M590, you barely have to peek. As long as you get that shot off, you're dealing some very serious damage. And now Oxygen are down to 3 members.
And Eclipse is going to keep popping away. I mean, you saw this a couple of shots ago, or a couple of lineups ago. He's got the headshot angle for this peak. He knows exactly where to aim this, and that second one is as clean as can be. Canadian with a quick cross to shut down Fox as he works his way in. There was some success for OXG,
come on,
but it's
Troy.
all gone now as Canadian does it a second time to close out on the match. DarkZero take victory here today and are well on their way to climbing the leaderboard between today and tomorrow to maybe, just maybe, try and push themselves into the top 4.
Oh, 7-3 victory for DarkZero, and honestly,